Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Gas Cleave Status for the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, aka GameLogIQ on Twitch, back with another episode of Out of the Box. This is my short review series on initial hardware impressions for hardware that I'm putting under review in the Geek Command Center, things that I'm putting to the torture test. Tonight, we are going to talk briefly about the Thrustmaster eSwapX Pro controller. So this is the packaging for the box. In the box, you get the controller itself, which we'll get to here in just a minute. But you also get a carrying case that comes with the controller. And we're going to talk about a little bit about why you get that. You also get a little mini screwdriver in there in order for you to disassemble the controller and address its modular parts, which, again, we will also talk about. And you also get two shorter stick nubs in here for your analog controllers. So if you're not familiar with Thrustmaster, they are kind of what I would call a high-end game peripheral company out of the UK. I typically go to them to get my wheel and pedals for PC racers and simulations, which is one of my preferred genres, as well as flight control systems and HOTAS controllers. This is the controller itself. Again, the Thrustmaster eSwap Pro X. I frequently screw that nomenclature up and have called it it's the eSwapX Pro controller, so I frequently get it mixed up. But look, this controller is about $160 on Amazon right now, which is where I got it from. I also have already had for quite some time the Microsoft Pro Controller Elite V2, which is kind of the nearest comparator to talk about these things. So Thrustmaster is kind of a high-end boutique gaming peripheral company. Their stuff is going to be expensive. You got to make the decision on whether or not you want to invest the money in something like that. The controller is only compatible with PC and Xbox, so I would kind of think that you need to be kind of a hardcore Xbox player. The controllers are really made for what they call pro players. I'm not that wrapped around the axle about it. Look, I play a lot of games. I enjoy playing games. If I want to spend the type of money on this controller, then I would. That being said, I have historically not been a super huge fan of third-party controllers. This would really be something that I could see the point in investing in if you had intentions to use it across both Xbox and PC, because then you get the value of using it across two platforms. But again, that's up to you. So this product sits overall on the high end of the game controller market, because most of your controllers, your stock controllers, are down at like the $60 level. The controller itself is fairly well made. Again, very similar to the Elite Controller V2. It has metal finish on the trigger buttons. It has a pretty good heft to it. The tweaker, which I put back in the box, is used to go around and do things like remove these modules. So I haven't gotten into that because I've only had this out of the box for a few minutes, but the analog sticks and the D-pad are both modular, and you can swap those out. Now, most of the modules for the Thrustmaster controller right now are color modules, and so you can go in and change the color of the grips here, and some modules that have different colors to them for the analog sticks and the D-pad. But where you really have value is where there are a handful of modules that are out right now that have different heights may give you some different weight and balance to the controller, and those might be the things that you're more interested in. I think there's a case that sells for this controller, and if you're really a pro player, kind of what I would see the point in this in is if you want to put this in a carrying case and put all of your different modules in there that are different fits and different uses for different games, or if you're just the type of player who, when they go to a LAN event, likes to swap those things around and doesn't necessarily like one type of fit and finish on a controller, you have the ability to do that. As far as kind of my personal impressions on this piece of hardware out of the box, it's not quite as hefty as the Elite Controller V2, so I do prefer a controller or just overall devices in general with a heftier weight. And so that's a downtick in my mind. But it is a little bit larger than the Elite Controller V2, if you can see that kind of through the body. In general, the Xbox controllers have been reducing in size overall as the platform has evolved and progressed. I'm not a fan of that. I prefer the larger controllers. And so I give it an uptick on size. I do also prefer higher analog sticks. I kind of dislike like the really short analog sticks. They kind of cause my fingers some problems, particularly like on the DualSense controller or the PS4 DualShock. So I do like the fact that at least in general, out of the box, these sticks are the higher variety. So that's an uptick. I'm not so crazy about the case, but I do about the things that come in the box. But obviously, you have to have the tool to go along with it to swap the modules out. I do like the fact that it has two different sizes of sticks in the box. You have the ability to go in and change the trigger pull distance with some of the adjusters here, and probably the coolest thing on this is this array of buttons underneath the panel, which give you control over volume, assigning it to P1 and P2, but it also has this map button, which a lot of controllers like this require you to have software, and you can only go in and make adjustments really fine-tuned, highly granular adjustments with the software on a PC. This allows you to go in and hit this map button and change your your button configurations and some of the calibrations on the fly. So I may not mess with that a lot myself personally, but it is a nice thing to have there as well. It also does come with a braided cable, so cables aren't that big a deal, but it is nice when they're braided. This cable also has some heft to it, and that is a big deal because I have a lot of stuff on my desktop when I game, and I have a lot of cables that lie around. Very lightweight cables are very problematic because they don't stay in place and they flop around all over the place, so it's nice to have this heftier, weightier cable that will kind of stay fixed to your desk and not move around as much. So, and probably the last thing is this controller does have these smoother sides versus the tackier sides and the tactile feel that the Microsoft Controller Elite V2 has, which is, this is what I prefer. I don't really like smooth sides. As you can see, I wear gloves, specifically because I have a hard time gripping peripherals where the plastic is too smooth. So overall, I'm at about, a mid-6, maybe a 7 on kind of my initial impressions on this out of the box. I'm going to fool around with it a heck of a lot more over the next few days. I'm about to jump into some Call of Duty and try this out on the Xbox Series S. So you're welcome to ride along with me for those comments. I'm going to check in on the chat here because my man K-Med has jumped in. I'm assuming it's wired only. I was offered one of these to review, but passed on it because I don't have the time to really review it for what it is. But you got it. Now I get to see what I missed without the effort. Yeah, so I think I've got to check it. The quick start guide leads me to believe that this is wireless because it has diagrams that show it in both wired configuration and wireless configuration. I don't know if I'm misreading the quick start guide. I again just briefly glanced at it, but yeah, but obviously it definitely supports wired interface, but it may also be wireless. The other thing I'm concerned about is it may only be wireless. the depiction shows it in wire configuration with the Xbox Series X and Xbox One X or Scorpio, and then shows it in wireless configuration with the old One S. So I don't know if there's a difference across the models in terms of its compatibility, but we will certainly find out, as I'm about to find out right now with the wireless Series S. So thanks a lot for joining in on this episode of Out of the Box. Thanks very much for those watching the archive version of this video on the Rounding Off Affinity gaming channel on YouTube. I'm about to switch scenes and hook this controller up, change titles on the stream, and shift over to Call of Duty. So I will talk to you guys later.